Hey folks, Brendan here from Bluelight with 20 tips, awesome pieces of guidance to support you if you are in the fast track inspector process, or if you're going for the rank of inspector on a promotion board or even above, because what we're looking at today is the superintendent rank. Because if you're in the fast track to inspector process, you are looking at becoming a superintendent, not staying an inspector. I'm Brendan from Bluelight, and for those of you who've not come across these videos before, I've been coaching and supporting people to succeed in promotion boards and specialist interviews now for 26 years. Can you believe that? 26 years. 37 years in the police sector, retired 9 years ago. For the past decade, I've been helping people to achieve success in the police recruitment process. And actually, quite a few of my one-to-one clients for the fast track inspector process are individuals who succeeded through my recruitment seminars and webinars, one-to-ones, online courses. Check out the links below to the full range of all the different courses that you can access, and I'd love to see you, look forward to seeing you on one of those webinars or one-to-ones. And it's one of those one-to-ones I'm going to talk about today. So if I look at my notes a lot, it's because I'm referring to my notes a lot of scribbling down from a session yesterday with what I've got to say is an awesome candidate who I'm sure is going to do well in the process, but I'm going to make sure they do well. The same deal applies as always though. I'll show you the way you've got to do the hard work. So let's get stuck into the top 20. Going to be quick here, so there's not going to be a lot of detail. If you want that detail, then shameless plug, come and join the webinars. Weekly webinars where we actually practice for the skills for promotion boards, and at the moment it's just £3.33 a month. It's going to go up soon, that, and it's going to be a flat fee. So this particular individual is applying for a force that has a 30-minute presentation to a chief superintendent, the PCC, and the chief constable. Oh my goodness. And then there's an interview where you're going to be asked 3 questions. So to start with, the 30-minute presentation, what sort of structure are you going to adopt? Well, it's going to be on the challenges of the next 5 years. So what are the challenges for the next 5 years? Now, my expectation is they don't just want you to talk about what the challenges are, they want to talk about how you anticipate being able to deliver on those challenges. And you're not going to be able to talk about all of them. You've only got 30 minutes. So I would structure it along the lines of specific challenges that you've chosen. I'd be choosing the ones that are hurting the force the most. And then I would look at why these challenges are important, what the impact of these challenges currently is. 3 specific things that you're going to do. 3 specific things that you're going to do. And then what those things, when you implement them, will result in. So there's the first tip. Number 2, looking at the interview, 3 questions, doesn't sound much, 30 minutes to prepare, but you've got 15 minutes to deliver your answer. 15 minutes, that's like a presentation. Well, it is a presentation. So it's a long answer, a long answer. So you need some incredible detail and structure within there. 3rd tip. In my answer, I would not just focus on local issues. I would take things from the national perspective and then work them through to how they impact at a local level, and then the same sort of structure for forward-facing questions. Why is it important? 2 or 3 things, and then what the result's going to be. And when I say, actually I'll come to it, that's not one of the tips. Okay, turning the page, where are we up to now? Number 4. One of the competency areas that's going to be assessed is deliver, support and inspire. So at level 3 of delivering, support and inspire, the word vision is mentioned on 3 occasions in 3 separate behaviours. The first 3 actually. So what we talked about in our one-to-one is having a really clear, concrete vision for the future of policing, not just at a local level, but linking in with the national level like I talked about before. So that was number 4. Number 5, Yeah, be careful about just coming out with just words. I'm going to reassure, I'm going to engage, I'm going to demonstrate safeguarding, keeping neighbourhoods safe, effective support for vulnerable victims, reducing serious crime. Actually, one of the things I've just done there is I've just read off this particular force's vision, its purpose. And they're just words, 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 words. And there's a load of other documentation that you can have as well that you could look at, things like the Race Action Plan. All of these words need translating because they're just vague, effectively supporting vulnerable victims. How do you do that? Well, the Chief Constable and the PCC aren't going to tell you. They're going to rely on you, Superintendent, Inspector. You need to deliver on that in your context. So there's no point in belly aching about, well, no one's actually telling us what to do. It's down to you. You've got to work it out. So vague, cliched words, no, specific, specific, specific. That's what they're after. So in respect of that vision, they'll want you to articulate how you intend to get to that vision. Now this feeds into something I talk about all the time, more appreciative ways of looking at things as opposed to looking backwards, having a vision for the future, a concrete and compelling vision for the future, one that's been designed collaboratively, and there's ways you can do that we talked about in the one-to-one. But we want to ensure that we achieve that vision through purpose as opposed to happy accident. I believe at the moment that I don't even believe that most forces have a vision. I don't believe that most senior officers have a vision. If they do, they're not sharing it, because when I do my webinars and I speak to my clients about what's the vision now, so what's the vision in your force? They're like, I don't know. No one's ever articulated it. And yet it's one of the behaviours in Deliver, Support and Aspire. And even if it wasn't, if you've not got a vision for the future, how can you expect other people on your team to know what the destination looks and feels like? And partner agencies, no one's got a clue, which is why a lot of the time I think that vision is achieved by happy accident, and probably why people just default back to targets. So number 7, here's a possible question for you in terms of the competency of emotionally aware. A couple of questions that I think you may get. So how will you as a future, as a leader, enable a culture of well-being? How will you as a leader in the future enable a culture of well-being? Next one, how will you enable an inclusive culture? An inclusive culture. So we looked at that inclusive culture issue. Yeah, and this is where my client talked about what they're currently doing, what the force is currently doing, what they're doing. And it struck me that in the board, they are not looking for the solutions of today or yesterday. They're definitely looking for the solutions of yesterday. They're not actually looking for the solutions of today. They're looking for people who are going to enable others to innovate and are going to be able to innovate themselves, who've got ideas that are going to get us out of the status quo that we're in. Because let's face it, the police are pretty static in the way they think. I've been in the police sector for 37 years. I've not seen a vast amount of change in terms of how things are done. And so we're looking at what tomorrow looks like. And this is where you need to have some ideas. Number 9. So really, really interesting comment came out. And it was about changing the narrative, changing the culture. I'm not going to go into the actual case, but my client talked about how a member of the community said, I don't think a white British officer would understand the problem. Brilliant, brilliant. So how do we get this to change? How do we shift the dial and nudge the dial so that members of the community from this diverse group would believe that a white British officer would understand the problem? And we talked about how you'd go about doing that if you were a white British officer. going into a culture or a community that is at the other end of diverse. So number 10, phrases cropped up like I'm going to make, I'm going to drive, I'm going to check, I'm going to require, I'm going to instruct. No. You might be in charge, but you're not in control. Let's just let that sink in for a moment. You might be in charge, but you're not in control. And think about when you were a constable, or you might be a constable. Do you enjoy, to what extent do you enjoy senior officers making you do things, driving you to do things, checking on you, constantly requiring things of you, and instructing you to do things all the time? No, me neither. So how are you going to deliver in a new way, in a new exciting way that's going to bring people with you when you're doing the exact thing that you actually don't like? So let's avoid those phrases in our answers. So number 11, living, I've just said got live this value. Without the context doesn't mean much. This is where I challenge my client to actually go and live the value that they're talking about in terms of learning more about a different culture. It's hard to explain, articulate without me actually breaching confidentiality, I think. But as a leader, you need to live the value and ensure that people can actually see that you're living the value that you're trying to articulate in terms of change. Number 12, I can't read my own writing here. Oh yes, the power of using the right questions. So as opposed to making, driving, instructing, requiring and checking, we're going to use questions to enable people to change what they do and how they do things. So the power of questions, using a organizational development model of change that's called appreciative inquiry. Those of you who watched my videos before know I'm a huge proponent of appreciative inquiry. I was actually doing appreciative inquiry before I even discovered I was doing appreciative inquiry. It's how my mind is wired. It's focusing on things that are working well in order to enable other people to build on what's working well and achieve a vision. So you really do need to be on the webinars to get to understand how all of that would work. But basically, we're going to change behaviors, which making people, driving people, instructing people, requiring people. You can't change people's behaviors. Remember, you might be in charge, you're not in control. Don't think for one moment you're in control just because you're in charge. How do we nudge changes in behavior? We can do it in just 3 stages with just 2 questions. 3 stages, 2 questions. And if you're thinking, how would you do that? My client and so many other clients are absolutely bought into being able to change behaviors just through 3 stages, 2 questions. So number 13, we looked at inclusivity, the importance of diversity, equality and inclusivity again, and how we would, this is long term, our approach to enabling a more inclusive environment is looking at changing the look of the force in 5 to 10 years time. Number 14, just struck me something about the culture of the police service. My client said something about they got called in by the chief inspector and their first thought was, what have I done wrong? And you might be thinking, yeah, I think that as well. Yeah, and I did. If the boss shouted up when I was a constable, I'd be thinking, what have I done wrong? How do we change that narrative so that our officers are thinking, oh, the boss wants to see me. It must be to tell me about something awesome they've noticed. How do we change that narrative? Number 15, a question for you, a gift for you on innovative and open-minded. How would you enable a culture of innovative learning? How would you enable a culture of innovative learning as a future leader, how would you innovate? How would you enable a culture of innovative learning? So we talked about how we'd do that. Number 16, a question on deliver, support and inspire. How will you as a senior leader enable or create a vision for the future that everyone, the police and partners and community buys into? How will you as a senior leader enable / create a vision for the future that everyone, community, partners, police buy into? And there's a method of doing that as well. And again, it doesn't involve many questions. It just involves 4 questions. 4 questions. It only requires 2 questions to develop the vision. The other 2 questions are about implementation of the vision. 4 questions, that's it. They are so simple, such simple questions. And in case if you're thinking, Brendan's wacky ideas, no, they're not. Based on research as to what works currently. Outside of the police sector, by the way, because this isn't being done much in the police sector. Where are we up to now? I think I've got lost with the numbers. What's this one here? Oh yes, we talked about one thing that you can do which would lead to enhanced collaboration with partners. One thing. Shall I share that with you? It's about living in their shoes. It's about walking a mile in their shoes. So there's something really specific you can do in a very systematic way to enable a partnership relationship to develop that's incredibly collaborative, and it just involves, in a systematic way, walking a mile in their shoes, actually enabling others to do that. Where are we up to now? The power of pride. The power of pride. So in terms of this more appreciative model and more appreciative questions, as opposed to focusing on everything that's broken all the time or problems, we're focusing on things that are going well, so we can build on those things, because we can't build on broken. You can't build a house on broken foundations. We've got to have strong foundations. We've got to have something that we're proud of. So we talk about this question, and I want you to reflect on this, because I've done this on one-to-ones. I've done it with a group of sergeant to inspector candidates in Warwickshire just the other week. I had about 30 of them in the room. Warwickshire Police very kindly paid for me to go down. I must actually invoice them for this, to run a workshop for their sergeant to inspector candidates. And subject of another video, but I asked them the question, how many of you have been asked the question or a similar question, tell me about something that you've done recently that you're proud of? No one. No one. No one in the room. Generally when I ask that question, I'll either get never or at my last PDR. That's it. We've got to change that culture. We've got to focus on things that work well. We've got to focus on the things that people are proud of, and then enable them to do more of those things. Like I said, simple questions, really, really simple questions. 4 questions that will enable you to create a vision for the future and implement it. And it's based on question. One of the big questions is that. Tell me about something you've done that you're proud of, followed by, tell me about something you've done that you're really proud of in respect of. And then we go back to those force vision, the force vision, based on supporting a vulnerable victim, engaging and reassuring with the community. Tell me about something you've done that you're proud of in respect of safeguarding a vulnerable person. Tell me about something you've done recently that you're really proud of in respect of keeping neighbourhoods safe. The power of pride. I'm going to end here with tip number 20. Excite them, get them on the edge of their chairs, get them to the point on your board where they're thinking, I'm going to borrow that idea, that's awesome. I'm going to borrow that. Now, can I borrow that with pride? You can borrow it however you want, as long as you pass me on the board. As long as you send me through to the next stage, I don't care what you do. Actually, that's not going to be your answer. But excite them, get them on the edge of their seats, because you're not going to get through to the next stage if you're not enthusing the board. If the board aren't listening to you and watching you thinking, this is the leader of tomorrow, then you might as well just get your coat. So this is why the preparation is so important, folks. You are not going to get through if you're going for a chief inspector to superintendent, or inspector to chief inspector, or sergeant to inspector, or fast track inspector, which actually really means fast track superintendent, you are not going to get through if you aren't exciting and interesting the board. So enthusiasm, get them on the edge of their seats. Have ideas that are worth listening to. Have ideas that are worth sharing. Have ideas that are worth them borrowing, with pride or not, because that's what's going to get you through the board. The ideas of yesterday and today aren't. It's the ideas of tomorrow that will. So there you go, folks. I hope you enjoyed this and got something out of it. Like I said, check the links below for more of this kind of thing. Can you believe that this was just an hour and 20 minutes? An hour and 20 minutes coaching session, and we came up with so much. My client went away buzzing, and rightly so, rightly so. We just covered so much, and they're going to have the board on the edge of their seats. I'll catch up with you soon, folks. Take care. Bye-bye for now.